And 18 out of 30 questions were asked in your examinations from the question provided by us only. So you can understand how this series is important for your upcoming examinations. We will provide, in this particular video, I will provide 40 most important and frequently asked MCQs of unit number 4, which is actually working with tables, working with forms, and CSS grids and web page layout. And in upcoming 2 videos, we will see next most important MCQs of unit number 5 and unit number 6 respectively. So focus on all these MCQs, and I can assure you that you will score better marks. You will get even more than better marks in your exam if you go through all these questions. बिकॉज बात को समझो, जैसे आप जावास्क्रिप्ट पूरा पढ़ने की कोशिश करोगे तो पॉसिबल नहीं है इतने कम दिनों में। एंड एक बात आपको समझ में आना चाहिए कि पूरा जावास्क्रिप्ट आपके सिलेबस में नहीं है, बहुत थोड़ा सा पार्ट आपके सिलेबस में है जावास्क्रिप्ट का। सो उस थोड़े पार्ट से कितने पॉसिबल एमसीक्यूज है जो बनाए जा सकते हैं, वो हम कवर करने की कोशिश किए हैं आगे वाले वीडियो में, जो कि आज या कल अपलोड कर दिया जाएगा उस वीडियो को। तो उस वीडियो को भी आप जरूर देखें। उस वीडियो में मोस्ट इंपोर्टेंट एमसीक्यूज मिलेंगे यूनिट 5 एंड यूनिट 6 के। एंड इन दिस पर्टिकुलर वीडियो वी विल सी मोस्ट इंपोर्टेंट एमसीक्यूज ऑफ यूनिट नंबर 4। एंड फॉर द यूनिट नंबर 1 एंड यूनिट नंबर 2 एंड 3 यू कैन गो थ्रू द डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स। आई विल प्रोवाइड द लिंक ऑफ दोस वीडियोस व्हिच आई प्रीवियसली अपलोड।
यार आज फिर से मार्केट मोमेंटम का फ़ायदा नहीं उठा पाया। मौका था पर पैसे नहीं थे,
इसलिए तो मैं ग्रुप पे MTF यूज़ करता हूँ।
And all those 60 questions which is discussed in first 3 videos are very important. 15 questions will be formed from the first 3 units. So all those 15 questions are so important. Do not take it lightly. Okay. And almost 45 questions will be asked from the last 3 units. So last 3 units are comparatively more important. So focus on last 3 units more. But also do not miss those 60 questions also. Okay. So let's not waste time and focus on the questions first and start with the first number question. First question is, which HTML tag defines a table row? Option is TD, TR, T-head or table. Correct option will be option number B, which is TR. TR is the tag which defines a table row. Okay. Next question, what attributes allows a table cell to span across multiple columns? Question is about span across multiple columns. Option is row span, width, column span or align. Correct option will be option number C. C will be the correct, col span is the correct option. But if the question was about span across multiple rows, then the option E will be correct, row span. But here the question is about multiple columns, so the correct option is option number C, col span. Okay. Next question, which HTML tag is used to create a table? Option is table tag, tab tag, TVL tag or grid tag. So here correct option will be option number A, table tag is used to create table. Okay. Next question, which HTML attribute defines the alignment of the content in the table cell? Option is align, content align, cell align or text align. Now see, most of you will confuse in the first and the second option, as first option is align and last option is text align. Guys, here the correct option is option number D only, because in modern HTML, which is actually HTML5, we use text align property to define alignment of the content within a table cell. But historically we used align attribute for defining or alignment of the content in the table cell. So according to the modern HTML, which is HTML5, the correct option is option number D. So do not confuse with the option number A. Here correct option is option number D only. Okay. Moving to the next question. In CSS, how can you add space between table cell? By using cell spacing, table gap, border spacing or cell margin. Correct option is option number C. By using border spacing, we can add space between table cells. Okay. Next question. Which HTML attribute is used to set the background color of the table cell? Option is BZ hyphen color. Now see, option A and option C are both the options are different. BZ color and BZ hyphen color. Okay. And cell color, cell BZ. Correct option is option number C. BZ color attribute is used to set the background color of the table cell. Okay. Next question. Which HTML attribute is used to define the maximum number of characters allowed in a text input? Option is max length, max characters, char limit or text limit. Correct option is option A. Max length attribute is used to define the maximum number of characters allowed in a text input. Next question. In a form, what does the required attribute do for an input field? Very important question. Option is specify the field color, makes the field mandatory, sets the maximum limit for the input, and last option is validates the field content. Correct option will be option number B. Actually, required attributes makes the field mandatory. If we use required attributes in the input field, then that field will be mandatory, which makes the field mandatory. Okay. Next question. Which HTML element is used for radio button in an form? Option is input and we use type attribute radio. Option B radio tag. Option C radio button tag. And last option is radio input tag. Correct option is option number A. We use input element with type attribute radio. Okay. For the radio buttons in form. Next question. How can you create a checkbox that is checked by default in HTML? Option is input type checked, input type checkbox checked, and C option is checkbox checked, and last option is checked input type, and we use type attribute for checkbox. Correct option is option number B only. Input type, we use input elements with the type attribute checkbox, and we'll write checked here. Guys, one request to you, please subscribe the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Guys, we make the video for the every year students, whether you are in the first year, second year, third year, or fourth year, and I used to provide exam ready content for you guys. So please do subscribe the channel. It really motivates me to make such great content. Thank you so much, guys. If you have subscribed earlier, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe it. Okay. Moving to the next question. In CSS grid, what property is used to set the size of columns in a grid layout? Option is grid column size, option B column width, option C grid template column, and last option is with columns. Correct option is option number C is the correct option, grid template columns. Property is used to set the size of column in a grid layout. Okay, moving to the next question. What does the grid auto rows property in CSS grid defines? Option is row size for fixed rows, option B automatic placement for grid items, option C is row alignment in the grid, and last option is height of the grid container. Correct option is option number A, row size for fixed rows. Okay. Next question. Next question is, how do you combine cells horizontally in a table? Option A, call span, option B, row span, option C, merge, and last option is combine. Correct option is option number A. By using call span, by using call span, we can combine cells horizontally in a table. Now, again, the question is about horizontally. If the question is about vertically, then the question correct answer will be option number B, row span. But here the question is about horizontally, so option A will be correct here. Moving to the next question, which CSS property adds a border to a table? Option is border style, option B table border, option C border width, or last option is border. Correct option is option number D. By using border property, we can use border to a table. Okay, do not confuse with the first three options. Border will be the correct option. Next question, how do you create a hover effect on a table row? Option A by using colon hover pseudo class, option B hover attribute, option C on hover event, and last option is table hover class. Correct option will be option number A. We can create hover effect on a table row by using colon hover and pseudo class elements. Next question, how do you hide table's border completely? By using which property? Border none, border style hidden, border with 0, or table border none. Correct option will be option number A will be the correct option. By using border non property, we can hide table borders completely. Moving to the next question, what is the purpose of the action attribute in the form? Is it used to name the form or define the submission method or to specify the URL where form data is sent? And last option is to set form validation rule. Correct option is option number C. We use action attribute in the form to specify the URL where form data is sent when we click the submit button. Okay, next question. What is the difference between get and post method for form submission? Option A, get is for displaying data and post is for submitting data. Option B is get appends data to the URL where post send data in the request body. Option C is get is used for secure data and post is not. And last option is get is faster than post. Correct option will be option number B. Get actually append data to the URL and post sends data in the request body. So do not confuse with the option number A and option number B. Option number B is the correct option here. Next question. Which HTML element creates a single line text input field? Option is text box tag. Option B text tag. Option C is input, and here we use type attribute with the text here. And last option is input element with the type attribute line. Correct option is option number C. Input, we use type attribute text to create a single line text input field. So option C will be correct. Moving to the next question, how do you create a multiple choice drop down box? Very simple question. Option A is by using select element, option B drop down elements, option C is option element, and last option is list element. Correct option will be option number A. By using select tag, we can create a multiple choice drop down box. Next question, what is the difference between a radio button and the checkbox button? Very simple and a common based question. Option A is radio button allows multiple selection, checkbox allows only once. Option B, radio buttons are round, checkbox are square. Option B, radio buttons are used for text input where checkbox are used for the boolean choice. And last option is radio buttons allows only one selection and checkbox allows multiple. Correct option is option number D. You can see that radio buttons allows only one selection. Yes, you see usually in every website if you use radio button, like if you have two options yes or no, then we use radio buttons to select only once, either yes or no. But if you checkbox, it allows a multiple input we can take, like we can select yes and no at the same time. So option D will be correct here. Next question, how do you prevent users from submitting empty form field? Same questions we discussed earlier also. Option A is using the required attributes, using the JavaScript validation. Option C is use the empty attribute, and last option is use the non-empty attribute. Correct option is option number A. We can use required attribute to prevent users from submitting empty form field. Okay, next question. What is the purpose of CSS grid? Option A, to manage form element. Option B, to create responsive layout. Option C, to style text and image, and last option is to add animation. Correct option is option number B only. To create responsive layout is the purpose of CSS grid. We actually use CSS grid to make the layout responsive. Next question, which property creates a grid container? Option A, container. Option B, display. We use display element with the grid. Option C, grid layout, and last option is grid container. Correct option is option number B. We use grid element display with the grid elements. So option B is the correct here. Next question, how do you define grid items? Option A, by wrapping elements in grid items tag. Option B is using the grid item class. Second last option is with the item property, and last option is by placing elements inside the grid container. Correct option will be option number D. By placing the elements inside the grid container, we can define grid items. Next question, which property is used to create columns in a grid? Option A, grid calls. Option B, columns. Option C, columns count, and last option is grid template columns. Correct option is option number D only. Grid template columns is the property used to create columns in a grid. Moving to the next question, how do you add a validation message for an invalid email address? Option A is use the pattern attribute in a regular expression for email format. Option B, use a separate script or library for email validation. Option C, display a generic error message for any invalid input. And last option is there is no way to validate email address in HTML forms. Option D is incorrect. Here the correct option is option number A. We can use pattern attribute and a regular expression for email format. But a lot of you will confuse that. We use input elements with the type email attribute here. Yes, we use input element with the type email attribute in the modern HTML5, but that thing is not in the option. So historically we used pattern attribute with a regular expression for email format to validate the message for an invalid email address. So according to the given option, option A will be correct here. Okay, so do not confuse with the options and do subscribe the channel. Again, I'm repeating, please do subscribe the channel. Next question, how do you style multiple form elements using a single CSS rule? Option A is use a common class for all the elements you want to style. Option B, group the elements within a container elements and style the container. Option C is use separate CSS rule for each individual element. And last option is it's not possible to style multiple form elements together. Correct option will be option number A. We use common class for all elements we want to style to form elements using a single to style multiple forms using a single CSS rule. So option A will be correct here. Next question, how can you make a table row appear as a different color when hovered using CSS? Option A, column hover row, column hover cell, column hover table, and last option is tr over tr column hover. Correct option is option number D only. We use tr column hover to make a table row appears as a different color when hovered over using CSS. Next question.
₹1 में सिर्फ जुप्पी पे लूडो खेल के लाखों जीत सकते हैं।
जुप्पी पे क्या?
लूडो? अरे हाँ भाई, जुप्पी पे 1 रुपए से लूडो खेल के
collapse to 4 table. Option A adds a border around the table. Option B collapse the border of adjacent cell into a single border. Option C adds spacing between cells. And last option is increase